Okay, hello. Let's just let our friends on Instagram join us here. Okay, here we are. All right. Hey, everybody. So today we are here to talk about something that can be really hard if you're living through it. You going through a breakup, which is hard enough anyway, but then being in a situation where your ex seems to be moving on much faster than you are. So this happens all the time, but it's really challenging. I mean, this can look like a lot of different things. If you're still hurting, but hearing that they're like dating already can be super triggering. But even just, I think it's awful. But like, friends talking about, oh yeah, they're doing great. They lost a bunch of weight. They're exercising. They're like got a new job. All these things, and there's this little bit of like, why couldn't they have done that when we were together? But also, I think kind of that internal comparison of maybe they're doing better than I am in this situation. And so on this past week's episode of Love, Happiness, and Success, I did a deep dive into what can be going on with that, why it happens, and also why it sometimes doesn't mean what you think it means. I think that it can be easy to assume that if we see our ex like moving on faster than we are, it can mean that they're like doing better. But that is not always true. In fact, what I dove into the podcast this past week was the fact that many times when people move on so quickly that it surprises us, first and foremost, it can mean that they were in a different place than we were when the relationship itself ended. That is definitely a thing that happens. But the other thing that it can mean is that your ex isn't really engaging in the work of healing in the same way. So because as much as everybody hates this, the truth is that we really do need to be in contact with dark feelings in order to really grow, learn, develop ourselves on the other side of a relationship that ended. And when we're not doing that, and pros and cons, like we don't feel as badly, but also the work itself isn't happening in the way that I think we all hope that it can. So that is what was discussed last week on the podcast. And if you would like to, learn more about this and hear the whole thing, I would invite you to check out this past week's episode of Love, Happiness, and Success. Here, I think I can send it to you in the comments. Okay, so there is that. But the reason why I am here today is not necessarily to talk about the podcast, it is to talk about you. And so welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. And I would love to hear more about what's on your mind and what led you to join this particular live stream today. I guess I'm curious to know if you're going through a breakup and it feels like you and your ex are kind of moving on at different levels. If you have some questions about this, I would love to hear more about what's going on in your life and how I can help. I am here with you until 12:30. We could talk about whatever you want. And I'm also going to pull up another thing here to see if some of our friends asked questions previously that I should address as we are talking here. Okay, but what's going on with you? Tell me about your situation. What led you to join today, and if there's something that you would like us to talk about during this live time together, so that I can make sure that this is meaningful for you. And I'm so sorry about the time delay. I know that that's a pain, but let's see if I can pull up questions here. What's going on with you guys? Anyone? Are you guys feeling shy today? So again, today we're here to talk about a situation related to, how to handle it or understand it if your ex is moving on faster than you are, or really anything related to heartbreak recovery. I've been thinking a lot lately about how to support my friends when they are going through a breakup, a divorce. It's such a hard time. I know it's incredibly painful. And it can also be really confusing because there's honestly not a great deal of information, I think, in our culture that's accessible about how to do the work of moving on. And that's a shame. And it's something that I try to talk about frequently because without this knowledge, people can really get stuck. Even well after a relationship ends, it can still feel very alive. You can still feel attached to someone, even if intellectually you know that this relationship was not good for you. It really needed to end. Maybe even on some level, you feel relieved that it's over and kind of annoyed that you're still having these thoughts and feelings about your ex. But you are. And that, I think, is a challenging situation for a lot of people. So it's why I have been attempting to talk about this more frequently on the podcast. Over the last few weeks, I've had a number of episodes all kind of clustered on this topic. And so, originally my thought was to talk today about what to do if your ex is moving on faster than you are. But of course, if there's something on your mind that feels more immediate, I'm always happy to hear that first. So tell me what's going on with you. What brought you here today? Oh, here's a question. I want to pull this up for you guys because I think that this is poignant. So thank you, first of all, for being here with us today. And I'm sorry that you're having this experience because I think it's common. I think it's hard. And you shared that your ex had a lot of options as soon as that you broke up, and that it feels like you haven't had any in the last 6 years. And so just out of curiosity, what do you mean by options? Like people interested in dating her? Job opportunities? Did she move? Tell me more about what you view as being options that she had that weren't available to you. I'd be curious to know. Dating options. Okay. Oops. Hold on, let me pull this up for everybody too. Well, and so this can be challenging. And I think that sometimes it can feel different in terms of what other people are doing, their options. But I guess there are two different pieces of this. And so there's like the emotional part of it, but also then the what do we do with that part of it? So like, for example, I think that sometimes when people who are in this situation, seeing their ex kind of move on, maybe having other options that you didn't have, there can be a lot of feelings associated with this. There can be anger, sadness, remorse, resentment, jealousy, all kinds of stuff. And if there isn't a lot of guidance around what to do with some of these feelings, they can turn into this downward spiral in some ways where you just kind of feel bad, maybe ruminating about the situation, and it can become very self-limiting. And I don't know if this is the case for you or not, but if so, your first order of business would be to take care of some of the first stages of heartbreak recovery, which involve going into those dark emotions first, because until we address those effectively, it's difficult to make some of the changes in ourselves, but also in our lives and in the way that we do things that allow us to get better outcomes. Before we address dark emotions, it can actually be difficult to truly get a handle on what it is that we want to do and what our options are, believe it or not. So depending on where you are in that, this would be step number one. But then step number two, once you go into those dark emotions and really do some reflection on your values, on your hopes and goals, and kind of clarify more about who you are and what it is that you want, and also are potentially feeling in a better place about yourself, then you can start setting that aside, moving away from the dark feelings and really beginning to craft a new future. And this, I think, is a very important part of this process, which is really around holistic life design, thinking about, okay, well, who am I now and what do I want? And if part of what your hopes and goals are to be in a healthy new relationship, to have some more options yourself, then that, believe it or not, turns into a solvable problem. That is an actionable thing, and there's lots of stuff that people can do. And so, like, I have a number of different hats in my professional role. So I do heartbreak recovery. I'm also a general therapist and coach, but I also do dating coaching, right? And I think that there's a natural progression. And I tell you, I've seen people all the time create lots of options and meet wonderful people and develop fantastic relationships. But you have to do stuff in order to make that happen. And if you are in that early stage of this process and haven't worked through feelings, or perhaps have self-limiting beliefs, or your self-esteem, your confidence is taking a big hit, you really have to do that first before you can turn that into all right, get out of my way, here's what I'm doing about this kind of plan, because that's hard to do when you're not in a good place. So I don't know if that relates to any of what you've been experiencing, or if your situation feels a little bit different. I would be, it sounds like it does. I'm happy to hear that. Well, hey, listen, if it would be helpful for you, I do have a free resource that I can send out to you. Let's see if I can send you this link. I'm not sure if I can actually. If you go to my website, come to growingself.com, I have a free resources section, just right in the main nav. And I have a number of things in there that you could take advantage of. But the one that I'm thinking of for you is a free quiz that I put together. It's a heartbreak recovery quiz, I think is what it's called. And if you take that, it'll ask you a bunch of questions, but it will give you visibility into what stage of healing you're in. So for example, if you are stuck in a more emotional place, it will help you identify that. And then if you are past that, you'll also have some clarity into that and say okay, where am I now? Maybe you are ready to shift into a more action-oriented phase. But anyway, so no matter what your results are, you'll get a report that will give you a snapshot of where am I in this process? But then it will also provide you with some recommendations on some things that you can do to be supporting your growth in whatever phase of this you're in. Because another thing a lot of people really don't realize is that there are very distinct phases of this healing process. And if you skip over one of them, it derails your ability to progress further. And people get stuck. I mean, you just told me that it's been 6 years since you broke up, which is honestly very normal. I talk to people all the time. It's been 10 years, 15 years, because that's another fallacy in our culture, is that, these things just take time. And actually, it does not. You can spend the rest of your life in this place if you want to. And I'm not saying that to be scary, but there's specific work that needs to be done. And if you don't do that, it won't change. So that's part of my public service, letting people know that, because I talk with a lot of stuck people. Anyway, thank you so much for the question. And let's see, lots of other great questions and comments here. So here's another one. Let's actually tackle this. Hi, Siobhan. Thank you so much for joining today. And so here's a great question. Can you explain why an avoidantly attached man would monkey branch onto another woman who is not conventionally good looking at all. That's an interesting saying, monkey branch. Yeah, look, I got the visual. That's a good one. Well, I mean, so a real deal avoidantly attached person, which, in our culture is actually more rare than people think. But assuming that it is an avoidantly attached person, they are experiencing a benefit from that relationship. It is avoidantly attached people, like, again, real deal avoidant attachment style, which is not as common as we think it is, but it's quite self-serving. And so I think there's an opportunistic component about it. It would feel safe. It would feel comfortable. It would feel non-threatening. There would probably be a lot of freedom in that. And they would be deriving a benefit that is maybe not obvious and would be above and beyond the way that somebody looks conventionally. So there's always a reason. But I guess my question for you, Siobhan, is how are you feeling about this, right? Because I think what your question also kind of implies to me, and I could totally be wrong here, but is that you are thinking about what your ex is doing and maybe feeling badly about that, which would indicate that you are still in one of those emotional phases. Perhaps it is in the stage where maybe you've moved past grief over the relationship, but are connecting, like needed to do some emotional processing around anger, but also meaning making. Like there's another phase of heartbreak recovery where it's really all about being able to create your own closure and understanding with the recognition that these answers are not going to come from your ex. They are going to come from you. You will need to rewrite this narrative and you will need to decide what happened. And until you do that, there's like all these open loops. Your brain is like trying to close the loops and make sense of things that you don't have answers to yet. And so what that can result in is a lot of intrusive thoughts about an ex, a lot of feelings of like, she's not even pretty. Like, why did he move on to there? Like, why? And so, again, if you want to get visibility into this, come to my website, come to Growing Self, check out that same quiz, take it, and it'll show you like what is the unfinished business in your process, Siobhan, that is leading you to like still be trying to figure that out, because it takes a lot of mental and emotional energy, honestly. It's annoying when we're still thinking about this. But also, if the focus is still like that external on your ex, at some point there needs to be a shift where there's a figuring out of like, okay, here's what I've decided, the meaning that I've made of this, and here is actually how it serves me. Here's what I have learned. Here is what I am going to do differently next time. Here's what I want for my life. And then here is my plan to make that happen. And when we're still like thinking a lot about our exes, we don't have that energy available to expend on our own work. If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but Siobhan, I'll be interested to hear any. Oh, here we go. You said, sorry, the comments like scroll down and then I miss people's new comments. But yeah, he said that he feels safe and secure with her. And he said that he went with her to get over me, and that you are trying to get closure within and you're ruminating a lot on it. Yeah, I mean, that's what people do. It's like whenever your brain has unfinished emotional business, particularly related to an attachment, it takes up so much headspace. It really does. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that this felt like it was in alignment with what you're experiencing. I'm glad for that. But seriously, Siobhan, take that assessment. I suspect that where you are, there's relationship clarity is actually a very, very important phase of this work that most people, honestly, they don't skip over it willingly. Like, they literally don't know that it's a thing. So I would think that relationship clarity, deciding for yourself, but then also in the emotional processing parts. And that report will give you some visibility, but also some guidance. So go to my website, growingself.com. In the free resources tab, I wonder if I could even show you. So here, let me see if I can share my screen with you guys without hanging up on everybody. And I'm going to put this away. Oh no. That made it bigger. Okay, so you guys, today we're talking about why exes move on so fast, what we could do about it, and super quick screen share. I hope you can see this. So if you come to my website, growingself.com, here is the latest episode. You can listen to the podcast to get more info, but also just right up here at the top, free resources. I have tons of free resources for you guys, but this one is the Heartbreak Recovery Quiz. How over your ex are you? You can take this, and then it's probably, I'm going to say like 20, 25 questions, but you can take it totally free. It'll just send you a report to show you where you are, but also what you can do to start getting unhooked from this and begin moving forward again. Okay, now let's see if I can stop sharing my screen. Okay, we did it. Woo! Okay, so we have a little bit of time left. Let me go through some of your other comments because these are all such great things. So let's see here. Okay, so Cynthia Ann. Hi, thank you for being here. You shared that you were in a 2-year relationship with plans to eventually get married, that he talked about marriage early on. I thought we were in a wonderful relationship. Some rough times in your life hit, family related, and then you broke up a couple months later. His choice. He started a new relationship a month after our breakup while you were extremely heartbroken. And a year later, he got married. Ugh. I am so sorry. That's the worst. Okay. Listen to the podcast from this past week. It'll do a much deeper dive into things, but I think, I'm going to say something truthful, and this is awful, I think, to hear and to consider, but that somebody very wise once said, the truth will set you free. And there are situations all the time where people in a relationship are having different experiences in that relationship. And one person is detaching, disengaging, moving on, not having a good time, but also not talking about it, which is super annoying, for sometimes a really long time. And it can happen under the radar of the other person. It's awful to think about, but I'm a therapist, and I can't even tell you how many times I have had a client in therapy or in coaching, like, hey, I need to figure out what to do with my relationship, who is telling me about not feeling great about a relationship, feeling ambivalent about it. And I'm saying, have you talked to your partner about any of this? Do they know how you're feeling? Are you bringing this up? Are you giving them an opportunity to work on this with you? And especially if somebody is conflict avoidant or is telling themselves a really negative narrative about what's possible, they'll be like, oh, yeah, but I just, which personally, I have feelings about this. I think that there are people in relationships who are hiding, and then eventually they will end a relationship and their partner feels absolutely blindsided. And what is crazy, and again, I'm putting on my marriage counselor hat here for a second, but like oftentimes if people care about a relationship, care about you, and understand how you feel, they are willing to work on things with you. if they have the opportunity to do that. And many times people end relationships without giving their partner the opportunity to learn, grow, work on things together. And I don't think that that's fair. And so, Cynthia, and I wonder if that is what happened here. I don't know if that fits your experience. But yeah, you said that you felt blindsided. And so what it means is that there were things going on underneath the surface that you did not know at the time until he ended the relationship. And that's crappy, because it sounds like this is a relationship that was important to you, that you cared a lot about. And my guess is that if you had understood how he was feeling, if he had been articulating that, you would have been very willing to work on this with him. But you didn't get that chance. And that sucks. That wasn't fair to you. And I'm sorry that happened. And I think working through that reality will probably be a very important part of your work of growth and healing as you move through your own journey. Because I think when you live through something like that, it's a type of betrayal trauma, that can make it hard to trust people again. Right? I mean, because you had this experience where you thought everything was okay, but it really wasn't. And why wasn't he saying that out loud? So to be with other people again, be like, are you sure you're okay? Is there anything to talk about? There might be a little bit of hypervigilance for a while, understandably. And there may have been other things going on in that situation that, in hindsight, you could get visibility into. That might also be very valuable work for you. So anyway, I hope that speaks to your question. Okay, so just running through some of these. So, okay, another comment about the self-limiting beliefs and what you can use to fix this. Okay, well, you could start by taking that assessment that I told you about. So on my website, growingself.com, the free resources section, heartbreak recovery quiz, it will give you some visibility into this, but honestly, for you to really do this work, just to be truthful with you, the type of thing that you want to do, getting self-awareness about what those beliefs are, understanding where they come from, understanding what you'd like to replace them with, understanding and practicing it so that you have a different experience. This is a process. This is not here's a tip and then you're going to go do that. But so, the work involved is exactly this. I have been working on a new resource to help people do this work intentionally by first going through the emotional phases of ending a relationship, creating clarity, setting some different boundaries, but also really going into the feelings in order to get visibility into the thoughts that you're talking about. So the other thing, if you sign up for that heartbreak recovery quiz and let me know that you're interested in this, or you could even just email Growing Self directly, hello@growingself.com. Just send a message that you're interested in those resources. I hope to have them available by the end of March. And when I do, I'll be sure to send them to you. Okay, I think that was pretty much everything. Oh, Alex, I don't know when you joined us. The resource that we've been talking about is a quiz that I have available on my website, growingself.com. Come to the free resources section, heartbreak recovery quiz. And if you answer the questions, it'll show you what stage of healing you're in. It will give you visibility into whether or not you've unknowingly skipped over any of the stages, which will get you stuck. But it will also provide you with some guidance on here are some things that you can do to start moving, doing the work of the stage that you're in currently. So I hope that you check that out. Okay, you guys, great to see you all today. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope this was helpful, and I will be back in touch next week to talk about another facet of healing after heartbreak, which is, believe it or not, why sometimes getting into therapy after a divorce or breakup can actually wind up keeping you stuck. That might sound like a shocking statement because I am a therapist, but it is also the truth. And next week, we'll talk about why that is. And if you are in a relationship with a therapist now and feel like it's not really moving you forward, I hope to provide you with some guidance and new ideas for how you can address that with your therapist and start making this work for you. All right. Take care, you guys.